These people are creating a terrible problem in our cities. They can't or won't hold a job. They flout the law constantly and neglect their children. They drink too much.
This is an old quote, guys. Really old quote. It was regarding like hillbilly culture.
And their moral standards would shame an alley cat. For some reason or other, they absolutely refuse to accommodate themselves to any kind of decent, civilized life. This was said in 1956 in Indianapolis, not about blacks or other minorities, but about poor whites from the South.
Okay.
Nor was Indianapolis unique in this respect.
Not a lot of cities just absolutely did not want like impoverished people of European descent, specifically from the South.
A 1951 survey in Detroit found that white Southerners living there were considered undesirable by 21% of those surveyed, compared to 13% who ranked blacks the same way.
Now explain that.
In the late 1940s, a Chicago employer said frankly, "I told the guard at the plant gate to tell the hillbillies that there were no openings." When poor whites from the South moved into northern cities to work in war plants during the Second World War, occasionally a white Southerner would find that a flat or a furnished room had just been rented when the landlord heard his Southern accent.
Yeah, guys, they did not like specifically like the northern like elites, I would say, right? Or the coastal elites, let's call them. Yeah, they did not want Southern Europeans at all. They did not, and the reason is they made them look bad. At the end of the day, that's really what that was. They had all types of names for them, guys. All types of names. They did not want them.
More is involved here than a mere parallel between blacks and Southern whites.
Bro, draw the parallel.
What is involved is a common subculture that goes back for centuries, which has encompassed everything from ways of talking to attitudes toward education, violence, and
talking. Okay.
And which originated not in the South, but in those parts of the British Isles from which white Southerners came.
Okay.
That culture long ago died out where it originated in Britain.
No, it didn't. Didn't die out. Didn't die out at all, guys. Like, if you go to the UK, you will see a drastic difference from, like, the elites living in, like, London, guys, and all of the hams, let's say, some of the hams, right? You'll notice a massive difference from the people that would be considered like working class. They have a completely different accent. Their overall ideology in life is different, guys. Their goals in life are different. Every single thing that they do is different. Some of them tend to have more kids. They tend to smoke and drink a lot more often. They don't care about, I guess, the health risks at the same rate as the others do. They're different. And a lot of it just has to do with the fact that their parents were probably similar to them. Like, not trying to be disrespectful, but you cannot say that this culture has died out. It has not died out. Maybe it's not as prevalent, but it did not die out. It still exists. Go to the UK or ask someone from the UK and they'll be like, yeah, they're right there. They live over there, type of thing. You get what I'm saying here, guys?
While surviving in the American South. Then it largely died out among both white and black Southerners, while still surviving today in the poorest and worst of the urban black ghettos.
Yeah. So what I'm getting from this is what he's saying here is that they brought that culture, like the working class, like the peasant culture, if that makes any sense, without obviously not being disrespectful, just trying to, they brought the peasant culture over. If you guys have ever seen the movie Oliver Twist, and have you seen like the people that surrounded Oliver, like the old movie Oliver Twist? If you look at the people that surrounded him in the UK, right, those are the people. And keep in mind also, these were also the people that were coming from like the indentured servitude. And if you notice what and how that kind of happened is that they were pulling people off the street that were either homeless, they were criminals, or they were orphans, right? So this entire group of people that were being brought over from the UK to the Americas under the indentured servitude, right? They were already lower class or working class people, right? They didn't have any education. If they did, they wouldn't have been in that very specific situation in that exact time, right? So Right.
It's not uncommon for a culture to survive longer where it is transplanted and to retain characteristics lost in its place of origin.
Right.
The French spoken in Quebec and the Spanish spoken in Mexico contain words and phrases that have long since become archaic in France and Spain.
I can give you some anecdotal evidence about this topic here. My wife is from Spain. I live in Spain, and whenever we go to America, I can definitely tell you she refuses to speak Spanish to anyone that is from Mexico. Refuses. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, oh, the person doesn't speak very good English. She's going to speak English and not Spanish. She just refuses it. It's the same. No, it's not even the same. I don't know, guys. It's probably like 15%, like what she speaks, guys. Comparisons, guys. I mean, the basics are there, but it's different.
Regional German dialects persisted among Germans living in the United States after those dialects had begun to die out in Germany itself.
Right.
A scholar specializing in the history of the South has likewise noted among white Southerners archaic word forms, while another scholar has pointed out the continued use in that region of terms that were familiar at the time of the first Queen Elizabeth.
Yeah.
The card game whist is today played almost exclusively by blacks.
I've never heard of this game in my life, guys. Never in my life I've never heard of this. I've never seen anyone play it. But all right.
Especially low-income blacks, though in the 18th century it was played by the British upper classes and has since then evolved into bridge. The history of the evolution of this game is indicative of a much broader pattern of cultural evolution in much more weighty things.
Okay.
Southern whites not only spoke the English language in very different ways from whites in other regions. Their churches, their roads, their homes, their music, their education, their food, and their lives were all sharply different from those of other whites. The history of this redneck or cracker culture is more than a curiosity. It has contemporary significance because of its influence on the economic and social evolution of vast numbers of people, millions of blacks and whites, and its continuing influence on the lives and deaths of a residual population in America's black ghettos, which has still not completely escaped from that culture.
Right.
From early in American history, foreign visitors and domestic travelers alike were struck by cultural contrasts between the white population of the South and that of the rest of the country in general, and of New England in particular. In the early 19th century...
Yeah, there were a couple of books written about this. I read one of them where basically there was, I think, one of the guys... Let's go.
Alexis de Tocqueville contrasted white Southerners with white Northerners in his classic Democracy in America. And Frederick Law Olmsted did the same later in his books about his travels through the antebellum South, notably Cotton Kingdom. De Tocqueville set a pattern when he concluded that almost all the differences which may be noticed between the Americans in the southern and in the northern states have originated in slavery. Olmsted likewise attributed the differences between white Southerners and white Northerners to the existence of slavery in the South.
Oh, I don't think that's correct, guys. Again, the Europeans brought that over to the Americas. The Africans are brought from West Africa, and being that you're in like a foreign land, you're going to kind of take in kind of what's around you, and what's around you as a slave, right, is going to be purely the impoverished white Southerners. Like, that's what you're going to kind of be around. If anything, they're gonna be overseers and things like that, guys. So you're gonna take on their overall terrible mannerisms, guys. So I don't think that slavery played a big part in this overall culture. I think they already had this culture, guys.
So did widely read antebellum Southern writer.
Oh, him. Yeah, Hinton Helper. I've read his book.
Hinton Helper, who declared that slavery, and nothing but slavery, has retarded the progress and prosperity of our portion of the Union. Just as they explained regional differences between whites by slavery, so many others in a later era would explain differences between blacks and whites nationwide by slavery. Plausible as these explanations may seem in both cases, they will not stand up under a closer scrutiny of history. It is perhaps understandable that the great overwhelming moral curse of slavery has presented a tempting causal explanation of the peculiar subculture of Southern whites, as well as that of blacks. Yet this same subculture had existed among Southern whites and their ancestors in those parts of the British Isles from which they came,
right,
long before they had ever seen a black slave.
That's not true. That's not true at all. Like, that's really far from the truth here, guys, actually. If I recall, I think the 1500s, 1550 something, is when basically the slaves flooded these areas, guys. So that doesn't make any sense by the context of history. But
the nature of this subculture among people who were called rednecks and crackers in Britain.
They were not called that in Britain. They were not. I'm sorry, guys. The word redneck, very specifically, is not even that old. It's like less than 100 years old, guys. Absolutely. So let's disregard that one. Then the other one, let's just say crack, right? That's another one. That's older. I think that's from like the mid 1700s or so, right?
Before they ever saw America, needs to be explored before turning to the question of its current status among
before they ever saw
ghetto blacks and how developments in the larger society have affected its evolution.
Guys, it's a little troubling though. I mean, like, listening to him, I'm just like, okay, yeah, all right, fine. But the overall problem that I'm having here is that we already know these things, like some of these things at least. Like, we have like historical knowledge on like those two very specific parts. And if he missed those and said those weren't accurate, could there be something else that we're missing in his statements here, guys? If you don't pay enough attention. So I'm going to keep watching, you guys. Definitely suggest some more of him to me. I'll keep watching just to see if there's anything that's being left out here, guys. But this one here wasn't bad at all. This is completely correct. Absolutely. Black culture was influenced by, let's call them peasant culture, because I think that's probably closer to what they were called. Probably peasants or something, guys, most likely. Black American culture has not been able to kind of get out of, that very specific thing, mainly in inner cities. He's saying that this is something super prevalent, but I can honestly tell you that I don't encounter people like this. I just don't. And I can look at my skin tone. I can look at my family's, random skin tones all over the place. And I can definitely tell you that that's not a thing within my family, or really anyone that I've like known too deeply either. Right. I mean, obviously you see people, walking around places that you may perceive are probably still attached to that very specific culture, right? The toxic culture. But I cannot say that it is something that I am used to encountering. It just isn't, guys. I don't know. Maybe it's just my circle or something, guys. But all right, listen, you guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Definitely let me know in the comments the next thing from him that we should be checking out, guys. All right. Enjoy your day.